Hi guys. All right, wanted to do a quick video about there is a lot of gray areas and a lot of discrepancies with respect to the new foreign exchange policy that has been introduced and the surcharges that have been introduced on potential credit card transactions and all digital means of transactions. Now, with this, there's a lot of uncertainty that is floating around, and a lot of you have asked, how is this going to affect our ad budgets and all of that? So I spoke to a few people in the banking industry and so on and so forth, and with everything that I've heard, I thought of compiling this video. Right, so let's get to the bottom of it as to why there is a surcharge as of right now, and there is a prescribed 7% fee from the commercial banks in Sri Lanka. Well, as you probably know, Sri Lanka has been going through a little bit of a turmoil, and the foreign exchange has not been as stable as it wouldn't say used to be, but you get the point. So essentially, for any country, there is one governing body or a regulatory body who would essentially be the official declarer of the foreign exchange as per the fiscal policy of that specific country. Now, in Sri Lanka, that happens to be the central bank. With the dollar, the rupee rather, fluctuating and depreciating over the time, central bank at some point said, you know what, we are going to forcefully hold the rupee down, and started declaring their own buying and selling rates as opposed to in comparison to the US dollar. Now, this actually did work for quite a few times. This was in collaboration with the global and local banks that operate in Sri Lanka. But what happened was, beyond a certain point, the forward rates that was once prescribed for the rupee did not kind of make sense with the rates that were published by the central bank, right? For you to understand better how any economy works, or for that matter, how a bank works, is you have two groups of people, right? You have the exporters, who essentially sell goods to the outside world and bring in the dollars, right? Once they bring in the dollars, the bank or the intermediary, for that matter, will buy these dollars from the exporters and give them LKR in return, right? So they will buy the dollars, give them LKR in return, so that they can go to do their normal business operations within Sri Lanka. Now, the bank or the intermediary or the central bank, whatever it is, will have dollars. And ideally, these dollars, they will lend to the importers, rather they will give out to the importers, where the importers will buy dollars from the bank. The importers will give LKR to the bank and buy dollars from the bank, so that they can in return pay to the foreign companies that they deal with. Now, usually, which is why there is always a buying and selling rate prescribed by any foreign exchange exchanger, rather, for that matter. Now, usually the bank makes a profit out of that. Now, if you take as of 20th of August, the buying rate of as prescribed by the central bank, the buying rate is 197. So any exporter bringing in dollars to Sri Lanka, per dollar, central bank will pay you 197, and they will 197 rupees, and they will sell this dollar to any importer at 203. Right, so they make 4 rupees a profit per each dollar traded between them. Got it? Right. While central bank kept on prescribing, saying 197, 197, 197, exporters said, look here, in the actual secondary market, if you go to it, the dollar is bought at about 215, 220. So you're saying 197, but I can just go to the black market and just sell my dollars at 212, 220, because there is such a high demand, and thus there is a higher price quota. So it doesn't make sense for me to convert my dollars at this time. So this problem happened to all the banks as well, which is why most of y'all who's probably opening up LCs and all of that get stuck, because the banks are running out of dollars to give to the importers, because the exporters refuse to cash in their dollars at the rates that is prescribed by the central bank. So while central bank did that, the commercial banks, opted out, say, look here, this is not going to work because our exporters are demanding more. So while you say 197 and 203, we are going to come up with a better, more practical way, and they started proclaiming their own rates, something which is desirably a little bit more than the CBSL rates. Now, if you take the commercial bank rates for that matter, as of the 20th of August itself, they buy the dollar at 205, not at 197 as prescribed by commercial bank, as prescribed by central bank. And well, since they're buying it at 205, they obviously can't sell it also at the rate that CBSL says, so they have their own selling rate, which is at 211. Now, this is not just applicable for Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC, but applicable for any bank. If you take HNB, Sampat, Ceylon, Standard Chartered, HSBC, whatever the bank that you're dealing with, you'll see that the exchange rate band is obviously higher than what is prescribed by the central bank. So now this happens, so which is why you can see over-the-counter TD transfers, the applicable exchange rates would be much more different to what is prescribed by the central bank. Now comes down to the point, as you have an understanding now how this whole thing works, it now comes down to the point about credit card transactions. Now, what essentially happens is credit cards are based on intermediary parties such as Visa, Master, Amex, and so on and so forth. Now, when you do a dollar payment, for an example, let's say you pay your Netflix subscription, which comes to about $11, I don't know, I've said $11, right? So you pay this out of your credit card. What happens is your account only has rupees. Your account does not have LKR, unless otherwise you have a specified different type of an account. Now, since you have LKR, what you're essentially doing is you're telling your bank to convert your LKR at a certain rate, buy dollars from it, and essentially pay Netflix $11, right? So when you do that from your credit card, Visa, Master, or Amex, they will convert that as per the CBSL rate, because different banks can have different rates, so they can't always cross-check with the specific bank as to what rate are you having right now. So they will cross-check with this one body for that specific country, which in the case of Sri Lanka will be CBSL. So they will convert it at the CBSL rate. Now what happens is, when they are being sold the dollar at 203, when the actual transaction happens, and suppose your local banking partner is commercial bank, when they are actually paying Netflix, they have to buy the dollar at 211, not at 203. So essentially they're losing out about 8 rupees per each dollar converted, right? So then the commercial banks came up together and said, look here, this is not going to work. So if you are going to punch our transactions based on the CBSL rate, don't do it purely on the CBSL rate, but take the CBSL rate, add 7% on top of it, and then make the transaction, so that we don't end up making a loss. So this is what is essentially happening. Now, for those of us who are in the digital marketing industry, or for any brands within the industry and so on and so forth, this became a big red flag as to what this is going to mean in terms of ad budgets and so on and so forth. Now, most of the local companies deal in LKR. Their reporting currency is in LKR. So suppose you had $500,000 rupees as your ad buying budget or your sponsored content budget. What is effectively going to happen is when, suppose, the number of dollars that will actually go into the actual ad buying will decrease, because from 500,000, suppose earlier you bought let's say $1,000, right? If you bought $1,000, with this new point, you will be buying dollars at a higher rate, and because of that, you'll end up buying only, let's say, $900, not $1,000. So effectively, the amount of dollars that goes into your ad buying will reduce, and thus the ad, or rather in the other way around, the ad buying cost in LKR perspective will go up. So for you, you have two ways to understand this. Effectively, the amount of dollars that you're buying from the company, buying from the bank and investing is going to go lower per se. Or the other way around that you need to understand is, if you're measuring your ad buying itself from LKR, which is usually not the case, Suppose the cost per acquisition of a lead is $1.7. Right now, earlier you would have said $1.7. Okay, $1.7 into 200, that's my cost per acquisition of a lead, right, in LKR terms. But right now, if the CBSL selling rate is 200, you need to make it 200 into 1.07, which is effectively going to be 214. So your cost per acquisition of a lead is going to be 1.7 into 214, not 200, right? So I hope you understand the impact of this. Now this 7% figure, certain banks have already rolled out, saying that, for an example, HSBC has already rolled out saying, okay, this is 7% and that is it. It is at the discretion of the bank. It is not at the discretion of CBSL. It's not at the discretion of Visa, Master or Amex. It's at the discretion of the bank, and each individual bank may have different rates for their competitive nature. While the global banks tend to charge a little bit more higher, the local banks might go a little bit lower, but this should be in the range between 5% to 7%, and that's for sure. And that being said, there was another concern that was raised about personal payments, personal foreign payments, foreign currency payments that will be done by personal credit cards. Right, now about this, there is no regulation as such as of right now. I saw a certain few posts that is going on, and certain few people PM'd me saying the card is going to get suspended if you make a payment in that mode. There is absolutely nothing that tells us at this point that something of that sort is going to happen, right? There is no regulation as such. I cross-checked it with several banks. You're still able to do your credit card payments, foreign or otherwise, in the normal way that you are allowed to do. Usually, you'll have a daily limit of 200,000 or so, but there's a new transaction limit. This can vary as per your different relationships you entertain with your banks, but there is a per transaction limit of $50,000. That's ideally about $250 if I'm not much mistaken. So anything that goes beyond it, you will be asked for verification, because you cannot use your personal cards for any corporate purposes. For an example, if you're a small boutique agency using your personal credit cards for ad buying purposes, that's going to be a bit of a problem. But other than that, for you to buy something from Amazon or eBay, or for you to buy something from pay your subscriptions or whatever, that's completely not going to be a problem. For people who are like students and so on and so forth, who wants to pay their tuition fees abroad, not going to be a major problem, but you need to supply with verification to your respective bank, and subject to verification only you'll be able to make that payment. But no such thing about the card getting suspended or something. So, but be mindful. I'm making this video on the 20th of August, so anything can go substantially wrong, or anything can change within the next few days, right? It's extremely volatile, untreaded water, so blah blah blah, it can change. But as of right now, that's the situation. If you hear more, if you hear anything different, let me know so that I can update what I've said already. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Take care, stay safe, and make it count.